Hey guys, it is another episode of Coffee Talk with Team Callahan. I am Laura Hyatt. I'm a partner and director of operations here on the team. And today we are talking hurricane preparedness with our special guest, Jeff Brady from Allstate. Thanks, Jeff, for coming back as a return guest.
Hey, thank you for having me. A little different format this time, but I
A
appreciate
little
being on.
different, yeah. Gotta love the technology. So today we just kind of wanted to chat because we are in the middle of hurricane season, which I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, June to November.
Correct,
Right.
June 1st, November 30th.
Oh, the end of November. Dang.
Yeah.
All right.
Extra 30 days.
Yeah. So we just kind of wanted to talk today about what are some things that we can do to prepare. Hopefully we will go another year without a storm. We did have, what was the storm a couple of weeks ago that kind of waved hello as it passed off the coast, but nothing really major came from it. So talk to me, Jeff. What should I be looking for? And we're in the low country, we're on the Atlantic coast. As far as hurricane preparedness goes, what are your tips or kind of recommendations?
Well, I think the biggest thing is to not wait. I think the key is being prepared. Obviously, if we're talking about hurricane preparedness, it's more along the lines of getting ahead of it and not waiting to the last minute. And there's a few reasons. You think about it from an insurance standpoint, we have obviously homeowners insurance, which is going to cover the wind, lightning, rain portion of it. And when I say rain, I'm not talking about rising water, which is flood. And then you have the flood side of it, which is going to be where you get a storm surge, where we get so much heavy rain that it inundates an area. So preparedness is not only having the coverage in place, but understanding certain restrictions. So if you think about flood insurance, if you're not required to carry flood insurance, there's a 30-day wait. So if you go out and buy a policy today, it's not going to be effective until the 11th of September, right? So you've got, a big window there that you think about. So you always want to be ahead of it, making sure you've got your policy documents. But most of that stuff is available online for most of your companies. So, but it doesn't hurt to actually have that with you. Most importantly is going to be probably having just phone numbers too. Just knowing what your claim number is. Most companies have apps now, so you can get that claim number and call it in quickly. So you have it at your fingertips through technology. But just knowing that depending on the local area, how bad we're disrupted, we may not even be in the office. Your agent may not actually be here, but luckily we've done some preparation as well to think about. But just starting with that, knowing what kind of insurance you've got is important. And then there's obviously some other things to think about too. Do you have certain valuables that you can't replace? I know in my family, we have certain things, pictures, other things we keep in a nice plastic box. And if we are at a point where we feel like we have to evacuate, we grab the box.
Yeah.
It's got all of our documents and everything with us. We're going to make sure that we're safe, knowing that we've got coverage in place. If something happens, hopefully it's not that bad, or if it is, then we know that we're protected.
Yeah, I mean, some of the things that we've done something as a team before in preparation for a storm is just double checking the simple things like, if you were to lose power, do you have those batteries? Do you have a little NOAA radio? Do you need to stock up on water, or you're in a place where that's not an issue? Just kind of mapping through, if the power were to go out, if the roads were impassable, what would that look like? And then understanding for you and your family, at what point do we either want to make a call and evacuate, or at what point could the local government say, guess what, it is a mandatory evac?
Right, exactly. And you'll have those sorts of things that potentially come up. And again, being prepared, knowing that if there is a mandatory evacuation, a lot of people like to leave at the same time. So giving yourself time, being prepared. Do you have a location that you can go to? Part of this is having a plan.
Right.
And part of the plan is knowing where your documents are, having your policy information handy. It's a matter of, do you have certain supplies that you keep, non-perishables, things like that you may have to have? Do you have a family member or somewhere where you can go when you evacuate? And if not, do you have animals? Do you have supplies for them? Are you going to be able to stay somewhere and take them with you? Being ahead of the game is so important. Knowing that, and then there's, of course, during the storm, and then, of course, the things that happen afterwards. But the fact is that you have your coverage, and then the plan of knowing where you're going to go, who you're going to be with, having people, and knowing where they are if you have family members that may be going in a different place. All of that is extremely important just for your own safety, because
Sure.
stuff can be fixed.
Yeah.
But we want to keep people safe, especially, they say hide from the wind, run from the water. Well, we do live in a forest, and one of the challenges with that is that, with the wind, we've got a lot of trees. And if you remember after Matthew 4 years ago,
Right.
the thousands of trees that were down in Chatham County.
Yeah. So I remember we'll talk about Matthew just because we were out of power for several days and longer than a week, depending on what part of the county you were in. But I remember before I left, where I evacuated, I just took my cell phone and went around to each room and just took pictures of my house. Not that like I was anticipating anything was going to happen, but in the event that something were, I can remember just what was in that room.
Right.
I don't remember.
Well, and I'll say this too, part of having homeowners insurance in general, to me, depending on who your insurer is, many of them have an app now where you have kind of a locker that you can keep things in. We did that same thing. We took pictures and we actually emailed them to ourselves just so that, heaven forbid, something happens to my phone.
Somewhere.
Yeah, they're in the sky. But most importantly is the fact that it's not just a hurricane that you're trying to protect yourself against. Heaven forbid you have a fire.
Right.
Hurricanes, the fact is your stuff is probably still there. It's just a mess. So you can remember what you've got by looking at it. Whereas even in a fire situation, I mean, it actually chemically changes at that point, and you can't see it. It's not there. So it's for your purposes, so you can remember what you've got. If you had that crazy, $7,000 sofa that's was maybe not necessarily in line with other things, but you've got the proof. I hate to say if you have to actually prove certain items that you've got, but really the best thing is just to jog your memory.
Yeah.
Because if you have damage and it's bad enough, we don't know as insurers or insurance agents what you had in your home. So it's going to allow you to be able to have that inventory. You're going to be able to remember what you've got. And as good as our memories may be, we don't always remember everything.
Yeah, exactly. And so if we kind of look at this, the first step, obviously make a plan, have your ducks in a row, your documents. In the event, let's say, whether you stayed or whether you evacuated, it doesn't matter. But if there were to be damage to your home or your property because of the storm, kind of what's the first step? Do I call my insurance agent? Do I call my contractor to come fix it? Do I take pictures? Kind of what are some pointers to navigate that situation in the unlikely event?
Well, I'll tell you this, but even before that point, I don't want to say we're always in anticipation of having damages, but there are certain expenses that we might incur. You think about if you're forced to evacuate, whether it be by choice or mandatory by civil authority. Hold on to your receipts. If you do have damage, most policies should have coverage for additional living expenses. It's going to cover things like travel, maybe additional food costs that you've got. Potentially, hotel rooms or other lodging that you may have while you're gone. I'm not a big proponent of just filing for those individual things if you don't have damage, but you always want to include that as part of the claim if you do. If you have damage, the first thing I can tell you is just simply to go ahead and file it with your insurance company as soon as possible. Claims come pouring in, and they do come in quickly. So insurers, while most companies that are larger insurers have what we call catastrophe teams, they're still there to make sure that, they may put 200 adjusters into an area, but they're going to get to them as quickly as they can. But if you wait to file a claim, where are you going to be on the list?
Right.
And being able to get someone to your home to write that estimate. You can go ahead and get a contractor if you know someone. If you've got damage, go ahead and have somebody board up that roof. They'll go up there and they'll put a tarp on it. You'll see the blue tarps after these storms, and that's all part of it. But any expense that you've got, you document that. It can be part potentially of either the deductible from your policy, or it could be additional living expenses that you have. And it can be tough, because if you can't really do a whole heck of a lot other than emergency repairs until an adjuster can get out and determine the damage that you've got, write that estimate. If you've got a contractor, hey, have them there. Have them meet the adjuster there, because if they can come to an agreement while they're there, then they can go ahead and get it done and start cutting checks, and you can start getting your life back to normal quicker.
Right. So essentially, if you come back and you do have damage, or you walk outside after the storm and you have damage, first step, let's Band-Aid it. Let's secure kind of whatever we need to prevent any future rain or whatever coming in if it's a roof situation. And then next step, call your insurance person and go ahead and get that process started, because it is a process, you know?
Yeah, and knowing the claims number, just for simply, like for us, having that claims number, because trying to call us here in the office, we may not be here. We may be tending to our own issues, depending on the severity of it. We're going to do our best to make sure we're up and running. But the reality is that there's a reason why major insurers have designated claims numbers for these major events, because they want to get them in as quickly as possible. They want to be able to determine what kind of adjuster force they're going to need, because if they think they need a certain amount, because think about it, several years ago we had issues in Texas, we had issues in Florida. These companies have people all over the place they may be coming from forest fires out in the West to have to come across country to deal with it. So all those things are important, but being able to get it filed quickly and allow your insurance company to do their jobs is the important thing. And the one thing I'll say is this: sometimes, and this is the hardest thing to tell people, sometimes we just have to be patient.
Yeah.
And patience, knowing that, your damage may be severe, somebody's might be not as bad as yours, maybe it's worse, but they do try to get to them as quickly as possible.
Yeah. So really, it's just, you're not alone, when it comes to hurricanes and whatnot. Like, the whole county could be evacuating or preparing for the storm or dealing with damages and whatnot. And so I think patience, and it's hard, especially with all the data and the science that we have available these days. I mean, we're able to see some of these storms come in 5, 6, 10 days out, So I think it's just keeping an eye on that, on the weather forecast and what they're saying, and following the local guidance, or good preparation tips. And I mean, bottom line is, from what I'm hearing, is just have a plan and have your stuff ready to go. And hopefully, if you have it ready to go and you don't need it, but if you do, you've got it right there handy.
Well, and you keep it in a place in the house, and we have all of our stuff in one place. It's easy for us to get it done. But you talk about the technology and the information available today. I liken it to being stalked by a turtle, because you can, for days upon days, you can see this thing. It's just come off the coast of Africa, and some pundit has said that it's going to be 17 days from now, there's the possibility that it could be here. Well, so much changes there. Not to say you want to completely ignore it, but from your own stress level, find things to distract yourself. Even if you have to evacuate, distracting yourself wherever you are is going to help you from a mental standpoint too, because that's the toughest thing, that focusing on it, the what ifs, as opposed to what is. And, that's probably a bigger picture thing. But I think at the end of the day, especially with hurricanes, because we see them so long, have a plan, have it in place, be ready to go if you need to. And, just know that you're, get yourself and your family safe.
Yeah. And just, guys, for some easy practical tips, I mean, this is some stuff that I've done. Jeff, you're welcome to share some practical tips that you and your family have done as well. For those of you maybe who haven't experienced hurricane season on the Atlantic coast, welcome. And some easy things: if there is a storm that is coming close by, it's good preparation. Go ahead and fill up your gas tank, right, in your car, just so you don't have to wait in line if something happens later on. Do that inventory. Like, if you're going to have to evacuate with your pet, do you have pet food, right? There's things that maybe you can go ahead and stock up on, and it wouldn't be a big deal if you were already stocked up on it and there wasn't a storm, right? Checking your batteries, that kind of deal. And if we are going to get any kind of wind, just securing any outdoor furniture. Right. Taking down that patio umbrella, maybe throwing the chairs in a garage or whatever. Just removing any, we call them projectiles, right? Anything that could fly through the sky, we want to remove. Jeff, any other kind of practical tips that you can give someone who's never kind of been through hurricane season before, if we are to get a storm coming our way?
Yeah, so one thing I do hear every year is that people say, well, if I don't board up my windows, is that going to do something to like void my coverage? Now, the fact is this, again, I can't speak for all insurers, but those that we do represent, there's nothing that says that you have to put covers over your windows. Yeah. Do you want to try to protect your property, and do you have an obligation to do so? Yes. Make sure you've got that. Keep an inventory of food. Hey, haul some of it with you if you have to. Food spoilage is something that happens too. I know for us right now, we keep a deep freezer, so we're trying to actually go through some of that for our meals, just so we don't have quite as much exposure. But like you said, securing things. If you have a generator and you want to stay, make sure your generator works. I mean, they do sit around. People will sit around. They have them and they use them 3 times a year when the power goes out and whatever. But no, I mean, there's nothing necessarily there. The only other thing you think about is this: trees. Tree maintenance is such a big deal now because of our experiences from Matthew and just kind of knowing, are you creating additional risk for yourself? Again, it's not a question of whether you're covered or not if the tree comes on your house, but if you can do that general maintenance and that, tree care, if you will, that's going to hopefully help save you some heartache and headache, down the line.
Absolutely. And it's really easy to have a local tree company come out and just kind of evaluate your property and see if there are any trees that need some maintenance or maybe are dying and need to go. Any of kind of just preventative stuff that you can do is always a good plan.
Yep.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Jeff, I really appreciate you joining us for coffee.
My pleasure.
This week.
Thank you for having me as always. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, our pleasure. And guys, for you on the internet, as we say, Coffee Talk premieres every Thursday at 10 a.m. on our Facebook page, so be sure to check that out. And we look forward to seeing you again next week. Have a great day.